All right, well, welcome to another edition of Riedel and Romeo. And I want to tell you, I took a trip, which I've been meaning to do for years, Ralph, to Gettysburg. I went down on Thursday, grabbed the train from New York to Harrisburg, picked up a car. And it's something I've been long wanting to do because I'm interested in the Civil War and read a lot about it and have toured some battlefields, but never got around to getting to Gettysburg. And I got to tell you, it is a profoundly moving experience. You can read about the battle, as horrific as it was. I mean, 50,000 men lost their lives. Horrible combat, hand-to-hand combat, people being stabbed in the neck with bayonets, all that kind of stuff. But you don't realize the carnage until you see the battlefield itself and how close they were. I mean, they were fighting for inches of land, in Little Round Top. The Texas guys were halfway up the hill, and then they met the Union soldiers, and they're scrapping over a rock, a foothold on a rock. Mm-hmm. And they're being brutally killed. And what I had forgotten was that Lee had the upper hand for the first 2 days of the battle. And then you had Pickett's, the famous Pickett's Charge, which was not able to break the Union Army. And that's when Lee realized that his army had been broken and all was lost, and he had to retreat. But, the battlefield is in beautiful condition. It is kept up extremely well by the National Park. And if anyone goes to see it, and I recommend you do, hire a private guide, and they'll go with you in your car, and they'll drive, and you can look at everything, and you get out, you walk around. It's very big. You can't really walk around the battlefield. Can't really see everything without a car. But a private guide is the way to go. It was only $100 for 4 hours, so it's not going to break the bank.
Well worth it.
Yeah, the guide's name was Bob Moore. Request him. He's a Civil War historian. He knows all about the battles, and he lays out everything in a very compelling and a very dramatic way. So you can the way he describes it, you can see a swarm of 10,000 Confederate soldiers coming over a ridge, and then you feel like you're the little Union guys because they did not have that many, and you see this. Literally this army of people coming at you, and your job is to hold the hill.
So hey, they gained ground inch by inch.
Yeah,
you saw your enemy right in their eyes. You know that this is not air warfare or bombs.
No drones.
No drones. This is really brother against brother. And, you need that guide, otherwise you can waste time, I would assume.
Yeah, because you won't really understand what you're looking at unless you're a Civil War total expert, and the terrain, and every movement that every general did or didn't do, as the case may be. Some generals didn't do what they were supposed to do, which caused both sides problems.
That's true.
But you really need a guide to put everything into context and to just explain to you how the armies maneuvered. I mean, I'm not very good at military stuff, and as soon as I start hearing this flank and that flank and this regiment and that division, I have no clue what anyone's talking about. But to have a guide there who's just pointing out, this is where Lee's people were on Seminary Ridge. And then you turn to the other side, and this is where the Union was on Cemetery Ridge. And this is how they slowly began to move into each other. The interesting thing about Gettysburg, it was not where anyone intended to fight a battle. And Lee was not intending really to have some sort of big blow against the North. He was up in Pennsylvania because they needed supplies. Because you remember, so much of the war was fought in the South, so a lot of the terrain was devastated. And his army was running out of supplies, whereas Pennsylvania was the breadbasket of the country. And he was getting in there, get cattle, get wheat, and, some skirmishes with the Union people is going to happen. And they all kind of just bumped into each other on this road. Yeah. And that's how the battle
was all by accident, as far as I know.
Well, Lee was very good at hiding from Hooker. Hooker was the head command of the Union Army. And, Lee was a brilliant tactician, and he could use mountains to hide his troops. And he didn't want the North to know how many troops he was amassing up in Pennsylvania. And Hooker, who was not one of the great generals of all time, was always worried about where Lee was, but never had the guts to really go full in to pursue him the way Grant eventually did. But you got to have.
They said Hooker gave a half-hearted effort. That's what I used to read in the history books.
Yeah, well, Hooker was upset about for political reasons because Lincoln had put a general over him and his ego was wounded, all that kind of stuff. Where, Lee was out there to do as much damage to the Army of the Potomac as he could and get supplies. So he had a clear goal. Whereas Hooker was kind of all over the place about what he was supposed to be doing. Was he supposed to keep troops in Washington and Harper's Ferry? He wanted more troops to bring up here. A lot of confusion in the part of the North. It really was General Meade who was in charge at Gettysburg, and then eventually, well, he took over for Hooker just before the Gettysburg battle. It was Meade who was able to break Lee's army.
You know how strange my upbringing was? I'm sitting watching F Troop. Don't laugh yet. And
From the Battle of Gettysburg to F Troop.
Listen. The end of the Civil War was near when, but all that. And the reason why I got into the Civil War when I was a kid from that stupid show, I watched the show. I asked my father. I said, What is this? The uniforms look very interesting. What war was this, Dad? I heard Civil War in the beginning. He gave me an explanation, and I got very into the Civil War just because of Captain Parmenter and Larry Storch and Forrest Tucker. Yeah, really. And it's just fascinating how we know very little. And it wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme. If you think about it, Michael, what are we talking? Over 150 years ago. That's about it.
Yeah, 1861 to 1865. But, if you read the descriptions of the battlefield, what is very hard to get your mind around is you are looking at gorgeous countryside. Pennsylvania, beautiful, beautiful state. Gettysburg, charming town, beautiful farmland all around. And then you have to imagine these fields strewn with thousands of bodies. And remember, they were there for a long time. They said that you could smell the stench of Gettysburg for months 25 miles away because they died during the heat of the summer. So the bodies were bloated, hastily buried. And once the armies moved out, the townspeople, there were only 2,000 of them, were left in this town where everywhere they looked, there was nothing but amputated limbs, dead bodies all over the place. And the town was then responsible for figuring out what to do with all these bodies.
Just think about recovering from something as massive and as many casualties as there were. Think about at the aftermath when you're in the same country, within the same country. Your family may be on this side, the other part of the family may be on the other side, which was, I think, rare. I don't think it was necessarily an everyday thing where half the family was in the South and the North, but it did occur. Boy, oh boy. I don't think people really realize how the fatalities, the casualties, and the bodies just piled up on these hills, and the carnage and the stench, as you mentioned, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's interesting that only one civilian in Gettysburg was killed. A woman, I think her name was Wade.
Really?
Yeah, Lee gave orders not to molest the townspeople or the citizens. And the Confederate soldiers, I mean, they stole some things here and there, but this was not a kind of merciless, horrible war as you see in Ukraine, where you want to blow up citizens' homes. They took care not to harass the citizens of Gettysburg. But there was one woman who, she was baking bread, and there was crossfire, and a stray bullet just went through her window and killed her. There are a couple of statues. But the townspeople survived the war. They hid in their basement, of course. You and I would be too, with bullets. Bullets and shells are flying all over the place, flying all for 3 days, all over the place. And the ground, literally, all the reports say the ground shook. There was so much cannon fire that it was as if you were in the midst of an earthquake that just kept rumbling and rumbling and rumbling till the ground kept shaking. So,
well, that brings to mind, do you think today we're anywhere near that kind of thing? I mean, it would be fought in different ways, but I mean, when I hear many people that know their stuff, and they'll tell you we're on the brink of civil war, and I say, well, you're pushing it, but is that realistic? Are we really on the brink of something as catastrophic as that?
I think we took a step back from the brink with Trump and Mamdani getting along so well in the Oval Office.
That was shocking. I was waiting to bring that up. That was shocking.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, because I said on my old radio show, I said, I think, we're not having a military civil war in this country, but we certainly are having an ideological civil war in this country. And that really also erupted with the protests against Israel in favor of Hamas on the college campuses. Um, but when I saw Trump and Mamdani shaking hands and having a good old time, I thought, well, they've pulled us back from the brink. So there is hope. If Trump can get along with a commie, we can all get along.
And talk about the odd couple. But, I saw that and I had to rub my eyes. I rubbed my eyes. I said, yeah, I'm actually watching these two that are so opposed on everything. Now, is this a ploy? Is this Trump's way of just getting underneath Mamdani's skin in a roundabout way? Or is he really trying to make amends or try to make nice with this, what he calls a communist?
Yeah, I don't think Trump calculates it that much. I think Trump likes a winner. Okay. And also remember, Trump is not really ideological. You can't really pigeonhole him. Is he a real hardcore capitalist? Yeah, he believes in capitalism, but he'll take a lot of subsidies to build houses and buildings and all that kind of stuff. He's happy to do that. He didn't want to roll back Social Security in his first administration, the way a lot of the Republicans were pressuring him to do. So you don't really know where he stands on the ideological spectrum, the way you do with Mamdani, who is an admitted socialist. So I think Trump is, okay, affordability, let's see what this guy can do. If I can help him here, I'll help him there. But I think that Trump ultimately, he loves winners. And this guy pulled off a great victory. And that is what Trump is impressed with most. And he's like, I would rather cast my lot with a winner than stick around with a bunch of losers. So let's see how he does. Let's see how he does.
He did not come out for well, he mentioned how Cuomo was his guy. He should be the guy any reasonable person should vote for. That didn't turn out. So now that this guy won landslide fashion, pretty much, I mean, he won big. Trump steps in. He loves a winner. You put your finger on it. But I can't. It's just the hypocrisy is knee deep, if you will. Just the phoniness. I mean, he doesn't like a phony, but yet he just hurled insult after insult at this guy, Michael. Now the next they're having tea. They're having tea. I mean, this is his way of doing things sometimes, and I don't think it's necessarily very genuine.
Well, I don't think Trump is being disingenuous here. I think you have, in the heat of battle in politics, you call each other names, and then the battle's over with, and you got to govern, and you got to move on. And Trump said, okay, well, this guy's the mayor of the most important city, certainly in America, arguably in the world. It's my city. It's where I was born and raised. So let's see how he does. If I can help him in some ways, I will. If he gets a little too left-wingy for my taste, I'll criticize him. But battle's over with, and now let's see what we can do. I mean, look, Trump can make peace with communists. He went to North Korea and hung out with Kim Jong-un. I mean, Trump is a deal maker. He doesn't care who's on the other side of the table. He doesn't care if you're a horrible person like Vladimir Putin. If you can find the deal, you find the deal. That's all that counts.
You think he's slipping? You think I saw him yesterday, and the first thing that came to my mind, he's 80 years old, he's slipping. He went from here, maybe cognitively, till about here. I think he's slipping a bit. I think sometimes they wear him out. He comes home from a trip. He's weary, but yet he wants to engage, and maybe he should just go back and go to bed, but he doesn't do that. He talks to reporters anyway. I think that could be detrimental sometimes.
Well, I don't think we're in Biden territory yet.
But, no.
But he is old. I mean, he's pushing 80. He's an old guy. Yeah. So I'm sure there's just the course of human biology. There will be slippage, but I agree with you. What I find so amusing about him is that even if he's tired, exhausted, he can't help himself. He still wants to talk. No. If there's one reporter at the very back of the plane of Air Force One, he'll go right back there and he'll give an interview.
Oh yeah. And sometimes he's in a windstorm. He's got the hair is going forward, and he's trying to get something out, and you can tell he's tired as hell.
Right.
But yet there's nobody there to pull him away very often because he won't stand for that. He's going to talk to whomever he wants to talk to. That's it.
No, that's well, that's what I kind of admire about him because he's not afraid of the press. He really isn't. He's not,
No.
and he's never been cocooned the way they cocooned Biden and Reagan and even Obama to some extent.
You got to love many things about the guy. I came in very skeptical, especially in 2016. He was as surprised as anybody when he won. I was shocked.
Oh yeah.
When he won that first time, I could not get over it. I woke up that morning, maybe 5 o'clock in the morning. I said, "You got to be kidding! This guy actually won." Then I saw his face. He's got his mouth wide open. He's shocked himself. But man, I have never seen a guy come on the scene and be just a whirlwind like him. And then he gets knocked off in 2020, comes back and wins again, Teddy Roosevelt style. Pretty darn good.
Yeah, no, it's he's irrepressible. He really is. But I agree there. I remember I stayed up that election night, and I actually had an election night party, and most of my friends are Democrats and liberals, and they all came over very smugly, assuming that Hillary Clinton.
They thought they had it in the bag. There's no doubt.
Completely. And I just remember my friend was on the floor and she was looking at Nate Silver, and it was like Hillary has a 90% chance. And then as the evening wore on, 85% chance, 70% chance. And she was just looking, I can't believe these numbers. I can't believe these numbers. And then this couple that I also had over, they started hitting the bottle because they were anesthetizing themselves. And she was saying, I told you I saw those Trump signs upstate. I told you I saw those signs. You told me not to worry. You told me not to worry. Now I'm worried. The marriage was breaking up. The poor goes, 35% chance, 20%. Of course, secretly, I want my little MAGA. I want to wave it.
Those. I was sitting on the subway with a guy with a MAGA sitting right next to me with the big red hat. And I ducked for cover. I was like this. I said, "Come on, this is not my uncle. It was an older guy, not my uncle. Nobody, no relation. Because if you walk around with a MAGA hat in New York City, you're taking your life in your hands. You know that." But I just remember my actor friends. I tried to get a hold of them on the phone shortly after the Trump, right to voicemail. Right to voicemail. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. Everybody's just in their cocoons in their apartments, and that was that. But he pulled it off. But now, you mentioned Ukraine, and you mentioned the war, and you mentioned this thing that's still raging, and the way they fight the war, dirty. Yeah. I'm talking about bombing kindergartens and bombing hospitals and these type of things. Is this ever going to come to an end?
Well, listen, I'm not an expert in this area, but at the end of the day, if it goes on and on and on and on, Russia simply has more military might and more men to throw into it. So sooner or later, they will grind down Ukraine, which is why Trump is right to say, you are not going to get a great deal, Ukraine. But it's either that or sooner or later, Russia's going to beat you. So you got to decide what you can live with, which probably means giving up territory. Now, Ukraine and Zelensky, they've been rocked by this huge scandal right at the heart of his government where they've been skimming hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh, they're a bunch of crooks.
They really are terrible. I mean, Trump was right when he said that it's a crooked place. And we know they were crooked because who was in business with so many Ukrainians? The Biden family.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they are a bunch of crooks. They are stealing from their own people. And that certainly has damaged Ukraine in the eyes of the world. So if I were Zelensky, I would be looking to make a deal. It may not be a great deal, but I would be looking to make a deal to end this war as fast as possible.
And it's such a complicated thing because war is a big moneymaker. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Somebody's benefiting from people dying. And, there are some people, his main adversaries, like Thomas Massey. I think he's out of, I don't know where, is he in California? I think he is. And you got these other people that Rand Paul comes to mind, always against Trump, but Rand Paul wants to stay out of these foreign affairs and questions his dedication to Israel, all these things. And then some, like I think someone from Alaska, Lisa, what the heck is her? I think I had it. Yes. Yeah. Lisa Murkowski wants to arm Zelensky, give him everything he wants and have him really be just well armed and go in there and just do their best to eliminate Putin. I don't know which way to go on this, but I know one thing: the way they're going right now, this will never end, Michael.
No.
We'll be sitting here a year from now talking about the same nonsense.
Interesting when you said people do benefit and profit from war. I used to think that too. It's a stark view of the world. And then I read the great economist Milton Friedman, and he pointed out that, yes, certain companies benefit from war, no question about that, defense industry, obviously. He said, but think of the number of people that war kills who may have been the next Henry Ford, who may be in our time the next Steve Jobs. You can't figure out, you can't know the death of these young people, what they might have achieved in life that would have made the economy even bigger and stronger than it was. Let's say that Steve Jobs had been killed in the Vietnam War or something like that. Who would have invented the Apple phone? Who would have changed the way we function today?
They don't think that long term, though. They're thinking right in the moment that this is profitable.
They are, but in the long term, war is not profitable because war kills people who are going to be productive members of a society and could well be the person who reinvents the way we see the world, the way we perceive the world, the way we live our lives.
A lot of these old guys that make money from these wars, they'll be long dead before these people are actually in the position to make all that money. They think, right now, right here, this is my way to capitalize on this. And I think that's the thought process. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a really good Arthur Miller play. It's one of his early plays called All My Sons.
I was going to say the same thing, but go ahead.
Well, it's about a guy who makes money off World War II because he makes airplane parts. But he found in the course of making the parts a flaw, which he covered up. And then, of course, his son is killed in World War II. His son is not killed because of any of the airplane parts he made. But the point is, All My Sons, he killed a lot of young men because of that fault in the plane. His son was also killed, and it's the deep family secret that they try to bury. But as with every Arthur Miller play, you can't bury the family secrets because they sooner or later they come to the fore and destroy the family, which is what happens in that. It's a great play. Great play.
It is. It is. Who was the actor that made the role famous? Anybody play that with Note?
I saw it years ago, and I mean years ago in the 1980s, with the great Richard Kiley as the father. And he was really, really good. Very good. And then I saw a production, The Roundabout, a few years ago, which was hit or miss. I can't remember who played it. Yeah. But I remember Richard Kiley as being terrific. It's a great part. The man is the successful man in the small town in the Midwest. He has the successful business. Everybody loves him. But the deep, dark secret is that he allowed these young men to fly to their deaths because he wanted the contract. So he covered up the flaw in the part.
Miller did that stuff very well.
Extremely well.
He was, they don't write him like that anymore, as they say.
No.
Oh boy.
I don't want to give away the ending, but when I was a kid, I saw that play in upstate New York, Rochester, New York. And when the father, after he's been confronted with what he's done, and he realizes that he's been covering this up from the family and that his life has been a lie and that he does have the blood of these young men on his hands, literally on his hands. And I think he's going to turn himself in, but he goes upstairs and boom, there's a gunshot because he shoots himself. I remember that I was, seventh grade? I didn't even really know what suicide was back then. But that gunshot, to this day, I remember being completely rattled by this man's decision to kill himself. Incredibly.
Hey, Michael, the theater experience is not, if it's done well, it's like no other.
Yeah,
if you're sitting there live and you're witnessing all this stuff right there firsthand, it's the best.
Yep.
A great movie used to do that when people actually went to the movies to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Now we sit home and watch the same screen I'm seeing you on, and we watch our movies.
It's true. I was watching the other day. I wanted my wife to see the Ira Levin movie Death Trap. which is great, terrific. Has that great? I'm not going to get has the great twist.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you know, we haven't. Well, I said to my wife, I said, see if you can figure out what's going to happen. And the only hint I'm going to give you, and this is the way you can usually figure out some sort of mystery, some sort of thriller, is nothing is as you are seeing it. Mm. Nothing. So what's been laid out for you has been carefully constructed for you to lead yourself to this conclusion. But now the viewpoint is going to shift, and you're going to see what was really going on when they had fooled you into looking at it this way. And then when the twist comes, she couldn't believe it. She was totally shocked. She said, I did not see that coming, but now it makes perfect sense. All the pieces click into place.
Don't you love that when you have somebody, you've seen it, but yet the other person hasn't seen it, and then they're mesmerized? I love that.
Oh, it's great.
I love to bring Cindy to those type of things where I know the outcome, but she doesn't know the outcome. Then I say, yeah, no, it's surely something else. You know, I said something before I want to ask you. I said, they don't write them like that anymore. You don't see stuff like that anymore. Is that true? Or is this my boomer status coming out? You know, my 65 years on the planet, you know, I'm jaded as can be, and maybe they're writing good things now, but I just don't give it a chance. Well, what do you think?
Oh, there's probably truth. The truth lies somewhere all around that particular world. I don't think the craftsmanship is there in a lot of the plays that I see now or the movies. A lot of things seem overlong and bloated and not really witty or clever. But I also think you and I have our tastes, which were formed when we were much younger. And there are a lot of young people who like the shows of today. I mean, I take a musical like Hamilton. It's not for me. Can't argue with its success. I don't like it because, to my taste, it's too presentational. The characters come out and tell you who they are. My name is Thomas Jefferson. My name is Alexander Hamilton. I hate that presentational stuff. I prefer the shows to be dramatized, where they don't have to explain to you who they are. You just nobody in 1776, that great musical, has to come out and say, I'm Ben Franklin. I'm Thomas Jefferson. You know immediately when they come out who they are. He doesn't say, my name is John Adams, and I was born, and I believe this. And, you know, the first thing you do is John Adams gets up and starts being annoying, and they all sing, sit down, John, for God's sakes, John, sit down.
Yes.
No, you know who he is, you know what's going on, just like that. It's dramatized. It's not presentational. But I can't argue with the success of Hamilton.
Well, the greatest times were listening to you destroy that play that everybody just raved over. Oh my goodness, the greatest thing since sliced bread. And here's my guy, Michael Riedel. No, I don't want to see somebody say. Now, you mentioned a play that was very, very. I played Thomas Jefferson. This is so many years ago. My God. And it's a small part. You would think Jefferson was a big part. Not really that big of a part, but a decent part. Yeah. And man, I had some talented individuals, but that play was nuanced. It was interesting. It was well written. It was much better than his play. I'm sorry. I don't see. But yet, compared to the other ones thought of as a masterpiece, yet 1776 is sometimes forgotten.
Totally forgotten now. But I knew the writer of it, Peter Stone, who was a great, great guy. And Peter and the composer, Sherman Edwards? Yeah, was it? No. Was it
I think so. It sounds familiar.
Sherman Edwards. They pulled off this remarkable feat from a dramaturgical point of view. We know that they signed the Declaration of Independence, but they put you on the edge of your seat. Are these guys going to do it? Are they going to pull this off? Because what we don't really know now is that there was no outcome. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And there were so many disagreements, certainly over slavery, that at any moment could have broken up the whole Congress there. And independence would have never happened because the South, so many of the people in the South did not want to have to deal with Northerners who wanted abolition. So they had the 3/5 compromise, right? But what Peter and Sherman Edwards did, which was quite brilliant, to create suspense. Peter told me this. He said, to create suspense, I put on one side of the stage the 13 colonies whether and which ones were in yay and which were in nay for independence. And then on the other side, I put a calendar, and I had the calendar counting down to July 4th, right? Because come July 4th, that's when the Declaration of Independence is signed. But getting there is going to be so complex. And he said, and every day a page would be turned over on the calendar, but then as some compromise had been made, a state in the nay category would be slid over into the yay state until you get to until you get, I think, to July 3rd. And if I'm not mistaken, the only nay is still South Carolina. And they finally do the slavery deal. And the South Carolina goes into the yay, and it's July 4th. And you have the Declaration of Independence. But it's a brilliant way of ginning up the suspense.
It really is. Yeah. You said it before. You said it perfectly. Presentational, as opposed to the thinking man's play, or you have to unravel what's going on. You have to, you go in and, little by little, it's uncovered in front of you. It's not just there shoving it right down your throat. And that's where I think they're dumbing it down. I just think that we're dumber. So, of course, our art has to be dumber.
Well, I saw a movie that everyone's raving about that I did not like at all called Blue Moon, about the lyricist Larry Hart. With I can't remember the actor who was in it, but oh gosh, he got very good reviews. And I thought throughout the entire movie, they have to explain who Larry Hart is. Well, then I wrote this, and then I wrote that. And oh, there is my friend Richard Rodgers. He composed the musicals I wrote. Oh, and there's his new writing partner, Oscar Hammerstein II. And he had written Showboat before then. And it's just, I know all this stuff. And granted, you and I are theater people, so we're probably not the ideal. Well, we should be the ideal audience for this because we love all this music and we love these.
Sure.
But I thought this writer of this movie, he is telling himself nobody going to see this movie knows who Larry Hart or Richard Rodgers or Oscar Hammerstein is. So I'm going to have to explain. So it's all explanation and very little drama.
Yeah, I like the inside stuff. I like the stuff that you don't go. I guess it plays to a certain audience, Michael. Like a certain audience won't go see something like that, but you assume if this audience will go see something like that, we don't have to explain every single thing to them. That to me, that would be the smart way to go.
The other funny thing that drove me crazy about this movie is it takes place on the opening night of Oklahoma, and Larry Hart, he's no longer really writing with Richard Rodgers, and he's
right.
He was a big drunk, and he's sitting in Sardi's before the audience gets there after the opening night. And then the people come in for the opening night party. This is the biggest hit on Broadway of the era, right? Mm-hmm. 5 people are there in the party because they don't have a budget for extras. So I thought this is the most sparsely attended opening night party I've ever seen. This looks like a party where the show got terrible reviews and everybody avoided the party. And here it is, this show that just got rave reviews that everybody knew was a colossal hit. And there were 3 people at Sardi's celebrating. So spend a little more on the experts.
I'm trying to think of the original cast members. Laurie and Curly were who?
Alfred Drake, wasn't it? Alfred Drake.
Oh, am I talking 1949 or something?
43, I think it was.
43. Wow, yeah, I'm way off. Okay.
World War II.
And who's the original?
Alfred Drake, Celeste Holm, Ado Annie.
Mm.
I can't remember who.
And Gordon McRae came later. I know that on screen.
Yeah, with Shirley Jones.
Yes,
in the movie.
I think Florence Henderson played that role to some acclaim. I think at one point, maybe a little bit after that, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, probably.
But the original Curly, that'd be interesting to find out.
It was Alfred Drake.
Oh, you're saying Alfred? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was Alfred.
Okay, so you got Drake and you got. And Judd, with the dark character of Judd. Rod Steiger in the film, I remember that.
Yeah. See, now that's a very interesting part because that's Rodgers and Hammerstein going in a way into a dark part of American
Very
life
dark.
That musicals had never done before. Because, the guy he's got some weird obsession with pornography because remember, he's got the dirty pictures.
Yeah.
But he's also so badly treated by Curly. You think Curly is this great hero, but the way Curly treats him is is horrible. And you think with someone like Judd, if people had just had a little sympathy for him, tried to understand him and not vilify him and mistreat him the way they do, he might have turned out better. But
well, that's what they're trying to say. You know,
yeah.
if they only treated him with some humanity,
Yeah.
he wouldn't have to sing "Poor Judd is Dead."
Right, exactly. And well, and there's Curly, who, is the hero of the show, but he treats him really, really abominably.
And Curly's got and Curly's got he's the all-American guy to a certain extent. And he's just got everything. He's got the blonde hair. He's got and Judd is very I don't know. He's dark and
overweight.
Right. That's right. Overweight also. And I played that many years ago too, but who cares? Maybe 1985, 85, something like that. I played Curly. And so you get a guy from New Jersey and you stick him in some chaps and you got yourself a Curly, that's all.
Look, I mean, Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein were from New York City. What do you think they knew about it?
It's true.
I read an interesting chapter in a book called They Wrote That, which is a really great book by Max Wilkin about the great American composers, many of whom he knew personally. The book came out in the 70s, so he interviewed them all while they were still alive. And Richard Rodgers said when they were embarking on writing Oklahoma, he picked up a book about the history of the West and he read 3 pages and he said, "This is not going to help me." And he tossed it aside. He said, we were creating a New Yorker's fantasy about what Oklahoma was. And if we got too bogged down in, the realistic story of the settling of the American West, we'd be writing a history book and not a musical. So he said,
well, talk about dark. What about Carousel?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. That's another one.
There was a troubled soul right there.
Well, it's hard to pull off now for, some feminists won't see it because it's about a wife beater.
Yeah, he knocked around the wife and, he's sorry about it and everything else.
Yeah, a friend of mine works with the Rodgers and Hammerstein organization, and there is resistance to doing some of their classic shows because people find The King and I to be cultural appropriation. South Pacific.
The
Native people are written
racist,
in a condescending way. Oklahoma's, they can still get away with Oklahoma. Carousel's got the wife beater. So all these shows are what they call problematic shows. But, my feeling is just do them and you can debate why they have problems from our perspective of today, but just do them, see how people thought about things back then. And
what are your feelings on non-traditional casting when they try to, cast, different races in inappropriate ways, characters that could never, ever in a million years be what this ethnicity is. What do you think about that, Mike?
It bothers me when it becomes obtrusive and it takes you out of the world that the play is trying to create. I mean, I have no problem with an all African-American death of a salesman. African-American families can experience what a Jewish family, it was a Jewish family that Arthur Miller wrote about, but it could be really any family going through that dynamic. I think the same thing with an all African-American production of Long Day's Journey into Night. That's perfectly fine. It's funny you bring this up because I will tell you one of the reasons that I did not like the Roundabouts production of this All My Sons that I saw a few years ago. They had the neighbors were played by an African-American woman, but her husband was white. Now, I'm sorry, in 1947, in a small Midwestern town, your neighbor is not going to be a black woman married to a white man. So all of a sudden, they're trying to create that world, and you're jolted right out of it. As a friend of mine, I took her to see the play, and when the black wife came over from next door, she said, "Is that the maid?" I said, "No, that's the neighbor." And she's like, "How's that possible? How's it possible that they have an interracial married couple living next door to them in Indiana in 1947?
It's virtue signaling, that's what they like to do. But they lose the authenticity.
Yeah.
It goes right out the window with that because you cannot. And of course you mistake her. And if you say, "Is that the maid?" Oh, that's not the maid. Why? Because she's black, she has to be the maid? No, because the year the thing was made, that's where the black people were. They were servants, and that's a shame.
I have no issue with non-traditional casting in sort of fantasy plays. I think much Shakespeare is now a fantasy because it's so remote from us. And if you do, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Twelfth Night, these are fantastical plays. So in that issue, you can have all the non-traditional casting I feel that you want to. Same with the Greek classics, all that stuff that's very remote from us. But if it's a realistic kitchen sink kind of a drama, I think you have to be aware of historical accuracy.
What's your favorite Shakespeare tragedy?
Coriolanus.
Okay.
I love it.
What do you think of Lear?
Long.
That's for sure. That's a good way to describe it. That's for sure.
It's very long. Listen, of course it's a masterpiece, but I've seen a lot of King Lears. I only go to see Shakespeare now, plays that you don't see very often. I've seen enough Hamlets, I've seen enough Macbeths, I've seen enough Twelfth Nights, All's Well That Ends Well, Taming of the Shrew. I've seen millions of those productions. I like to see a play that you don't see very often, like something like The Winter's Tale or Coriolanus, which is a great tragedy. And what I like about it is, if anyone finds Shakespeare's language difficult, read Coriolanus, because it's written mainly in prose. It's very spare, the writing. It's not poetry where you've got to consult your footnotes to figure out what Shakespeare's saying. True. Coriolanus is straight on, and it's a compelling story about Roman general. He saves Rome, and once he's done the job of saving Rome, he thinks that they want him there, but all the people of Rome say, this guy is too powerful and dangerous. Thank you for saving us. Now get the hell out of here.
That's about it.
Yeah.
And we don't dumb down this show, folks, as you see. We're getting into some things that you don't hear talked about too often anymore. I mean, I don't hear Shakespeare being thrown around much too often.
What's the line, though, Cole Porter? If your girlfriend says you are heinous, kick her right in the Coriolanus.
Yeah. Well, I have a soft spot for Lear because I played Edmund the Bastard's son a couple of times.
Right.
And he had great outfits, I have to say that, luxurious. When he became, king, he was really, but he died. He also died a nice long death. So yes. You can't, he's talking, he's got the sword in his stomach, but yet he's still talking. He's still talking, and he's dying.
I saw a production years ago with Chris Plummer, great actor.
Oh, yes.
And his Lear was terrific. I mean, he was fine Lear, except he was a little bit older then. And so at the end of the play, when Lear brings in, holding in his arms, the body of his daughter, Cordelia, and he realizes that she was the only person who loved him and told him the truth, and he's devastated and all that. Chris couldn't pick up the woman playing Cordelia, so she was in a sack. So he hauled her on stage like a sack of potatoes, which kind of undercut the power of that moment when he's holding his dead daughter in his arms, and she's in this like a mail sack he's going to throw on the Wells Fargo wagon at any minute.
Well, you tell me the Cordelia was, maybe 50 pounds overweight. Cordelia is usually paid by a slight, pretty thing. But yeah, you know what I heard about who was here I go again with the names. Oh, the most famous Lear story, and I can't remember the actors, so forget it. Just forget I even said anything. It just flew right out of my head.
What's the story?
Very, very famous Lear portrayal that had a backstory. But anyway, go ahead.
Do you know the great line that Paul Lynde, I'm sure it was scripted for him, but Paul Lynde, the Center Square in the Hollywood Square?
Yeah.
Peter Marshall says, Paul, he says, in the play King Lear, who are Goneril and Regan? And Paul Lynde says, King Lear had Goneril?
Well, just the name Goneril.
That's right.
When they played, I read that in the 7th grade before I ever got into it. And I hated reading Shakespeare because when you read Shakespeare and you're a kid, you're going to hate it. Most probably, not everybody, but most. Yeah. If you do it, it's a whole different thing. To put it up is a whole different thing than reading it. And I saw Goneril, and that was it. That was going around our classroom like crazy. That was it.
I know. Goneril and syphilis. There you go. So I don't know how we got on that topic, but it's
Well, King Lear, we never thought we'd get on King Lear on a Sunday morning here, but
no,
we
who
did.
the hell knows? Who the hell knows? So politically, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm thinking of Trump making nice with the Saudi. Is he a prince? Is he a king? I'm not sure.
He's the prince, yeah.
The prince, right? Yeah, and he, and he's in there talking nice. I heard that he's getting criticized because his family has made quite a deal of money with the Saudis, and I think he was approached by a kind of an impolite reporter, and she asked a good question, but she asked it in such an she just accused him as she's asking it. She's saying, now, don't you think, this is inappropriate? That, you got to ask the question. It was appropriate for the question to be asked, but they just want to get Trump in a gotcha moment.
Yeah.
And he kind of said, this wasn't the piggy remark. You heard the piggy remark. That was before this.
Yeah.
He got her, and he just kind of, he answered the question. But he said, where are you from? And she said, ABC News. He said, oh, that's fake news. Fake news. But even though you're fake news, I'll be good enough to answer your question. But the fireworks were visible. But, they're calling him out for the connection he has with the Saudi prince.
Look, let's face it. And again, here's where Trump is more honest than everybody else. The United States, we've been dealing with the Saudis forever. We need their oil. You think the Trump family isn't the only political family that has not benefited from some deals with the Saudis over the years? I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine that Vice President Dick Cheney, when he was running Halliburton, had some deals with the Saudis.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it works. And the Bush family, all the oil that the Bushes were involved in, you don't think that they had to deal with the Saudis on a political, but also an economic level? Yeah. Saudi Arabia is an oppressive country. He killed that journalist. That's terrible. What are you going to do? We need their oil. If you nice liberal reporters think it's so terrible, then you should be in favor of fracking everywhere. If you want to put the Saudis in their place and don't need their oil, then develop our own oil.
And our friend Marjorie Taylor Greene retires or steps down or says she's not, or she resigns, actually.
Yeah. That I found a little odd. I mean, all right, she had a disagreement with the president. She's going to throw her away her career. Why would she resign over that?
What's behind that, Michael? What do you see?
There's something more there. There's something more there. I don't think just disagreeing with the president, he says, and he calls you a name, as we know from Mamdani, if I can say it, he called him a commie, and now they're best friends. So if I were Marjorie Taylor Greene, let it blow over. I'm sure you'll be back in his good graces. The next issue that comes along that you support him on, he'll say, let's forgive and forget, move on, it'll be fine. But
soon she'll be a regular member of The View. She'll be up there being the conservative View voice.
Yeah, she's definitely, since she was standing up to Trump on certain issues and pushing this Epstein release stuff, the mainstream media who absolutely despised her. She was Exhibit A in the insanity of MAGA people. Now they can't wait to interview her, and they're extolling her bravery for standing up to Trump.
I know.
Same thing happened with Liz Cheney when she was on the January 6th committee. Liz Cheney stood for everything that liberals hate. She was anti-abortion. She was for oil exploration and everything that they hated. But she stood up to Trump. Then they just loved her. They loved her.
And here's one for you. The Dems a certain group of Democrats are standing up, and they made a video. They got together, made a video telling the people in the military of all the forces to, if you don't like the way you're being treated, or you don't like the way Trump deals with a heavy hand, well, you have to stand up for yourself. If the military isn't seeing eye to eye with each other, you have no military.
Right.
You have a destructive force within. So, what do you think of that situation?
I think Trump was right to object to what those people said. They are undermining the military by saying that. They should never have said it. But as usual, Trump, he goes too far, and then he calls for them to be hanged. So
is that what he said? I didn't catch that. Is that what he said?
Well, he said it's sedition, and that's punishable by death. So that gives them, a chance to turn around to their constituents and say, look, Trump wants to hang us, and now we're afraid of our lives and all this. But Trump's not going to hang them, believe me. But Trump is right to say, hey, look, you're basically telling the military not to obey the orders of the commander-in-chief.
Hmm. No, you're right. You're right. Are you working out today?
I am. In fact, I'm going to head off to do my running class at Equinox any minute now.
Now, this is a running class now. What is that?
Well, it's this thing when your feet move very quickly and your legs move quickly.
Yes, I gather that much. I gather that much.
Well, you're on a treadmill, and
What a wise ass you turned out to be. I can, but you have to actually. Well, you're taking a class to learn how to run better.
no,
Is this the whole thing?
you're on a treadmill, and the person is telling you, you increase your,
Okay.
you increase the incline, and this. It's more than just being on the treadmill for 25 minutes, which I find kind of boring because you're listening to the person. All right, you go up steeper, go steeper, run faster. All right, now you're going to cool down a bit, then you're going to pump it up again. 45 minutes, and it's great. And then my wife and I, we go to our local pub in the neighborhood, and I always have my non-alcoholic Guinness afterward.
Now you reward yourself.
Yeah, with a non-alcoholic Guinness, which is always good. It's like having.
Now, is this the new trend, the running thing, where there used to be that cycling thing where you had an instructor and you had those special bikes?
Yeah, you still have Peloton's still popular, but I never took these kind of classes before. But as I get older, I find I need the motivation of having the instructor there pushing you to go.
Did you ever have a trainer?
No, I've not. No, never have.
No.
Nah,
Never thought to have one.
A little expensive, if you ask me. When you can take a class, I pay a lot to go to Equinox every month, and I'm paying for the class. So why would I add a trainer to it on top of it?
There are people paying $150 a shot, and that may be on the low side these days, training 4 or 5 days a week with the trainer, and they get addicted to the trainer, Michael. They can't even do a push-up without the trainer being there. Come on, come on, come on. They have to have the trainer. That's the addiction property that the trainers, they actually make their living on that.
Especially
I used to train Ed Koch many years ago, And Ed Koch hated exercise for about maybe 6 months. I had him. He would show up to 1 out of 4 sessions, and he never knew my name. He treated me okay, but never called me Ralph. He didn't call me late for dinner, so that was okay. But just a very nice little relationship, but he never showed up. But I do remember that. I had a few of these people that hated exercise, but the doctor probably said, Michael, you had better get into the gym and exercise, otherwise you're not going to have too long.
Yeah, Ed Koch and Jim, I don't really put that visual.
A big guy. I'm 6 feet, but he towered over me. Big guy, yeah. He had to get into. I think he had heart trouble, and he was told to go get some exercise.
I mean, Ed Koch and a pastrami sandwich, I can see, but Ed Koch and a Peloton, no. Anyway,
I sheltered. Okay, you got to take off.
I got to take off.
All right.
Go to Gettysburg. If you haven't been to Gettysburg, go to Gettysburg. It's a profound.
No, I want to go. I want to go and have yourself a good. I forget that today you have your class. I didn't realize on Sunday. Okay, right. Have a good time, and I'll see you next week.
Take care, Ralph. Bye-bye.
Take it easy.